All right, folks, welcome to another special episode of the Purpose Driven Movement podcast. Today I've got a special guest and a friend of mine, Sebastian Ellis. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tarek. It's good to be on. Good to see you all the way in Thailand. I'm here in Canberra, Australia, and looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, even though we're miles apart, we now are very well and truly connected via this podcast, and it's really good to have you take your time to really share with us this very interesting topic. So are you excited to dive into today's session?
I am. Obviously, I did some notes and started writing a a blog overnight, and realised the depth of the topic. And I think you and I both agree it is actually very important, and we hope that some people benefit from our chat.
Absolutely. So on that note, the topic will be seeing fitness through the lens of longevity. Quite a little bit to unpack, as you said, and certainly it can be explored and expanded. But for now, if we were to focus on your perspective of what is longevity as a starting point.
What is longevity? Well, I think a lot of people don't actually embrace what longevity means until we sort of get to an age where we feel that we have to. But longevity is really about living a longer life, a happier life, a more fulfilled life, and being able to function as a human into our mid and older ages. That's how I see it. And I think the whole topic around longevity in regards to the gyms, especially our philosophy at Elements for Life, we talk about trying to move away from just the aspects of physical appearance and athletic performance. So even though that's a key aspect of our training, we want to get fit, we want to look good, I think there has to be a mindset and an attitude towards other aspects and part of our routine and habits that are going to support living longer and feeling good and being able to live a more functional life. And I know that you're very much aligned with that as well.
Yeah. Now, tell me more from an Elements for Life perspective. I know you've opened up or opening up your third gym, and I've witnessed this over the last decade. And you're a big believer in growth and learning for your trainers, which will then impact the members. So, tell me a little bit more about sort of transcending the aesthetic level. Like, what are some of the strategies that you adopt at Elements for Life? Because we think about this. We're going to have clients who come with these expectations that I want this change, kind of now, really, or in a few months' time. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, it's a challenge because I think it revolves around education rather than practical application inside a gym. If you're talking about longevity, it really comes down to the practices and the disciplines that the individual engage with outside of the gym. Obviously showing up to the gym is one key aspect. You want to be able to improve your fitness and be part of a community that's going to drive success. But, when it comes to what they're doing in the kitchen, their habits and behavioural attitudes to living longer, it really comes down to an education process. For us at the gym, we try to do that through subtle messages throughout the gym where you can, maybe using technology or screens or some initial messaging when they sign up. But we do have a series of educational emails and other things. We're also building platforms and applications that will support many of these aspects. But it's obviously an area that needs work, because 5 or 10 years ago, if you look at the industry, and probably it's still relevant today, most or many, we'll call them brands, are still not focusing on this ideology of living longer and living healthier. It's all just about body image and training really hard, and I think that's we've got a lot to work on.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. The body image element, because that seems to be the sexy element of marketing. And this is the interesting thing, that how do we work around that, Seb, in the sense that our advertising, because I'm a big believer in our stand as our brand, And if no one does that work, that groundwork to kind of understand their stance, then the marketing will just be like anything else. And so you put the net out there and it becomes a sexy kind of appealing component that then drives everything else.
Well, I think you've got to look at human nature. I mean, human nature, we naturally want to feel good about ourselves. So the first point of call for someone who wants to join a gym, they've got to have a reason. And most of those reasons are unfortunate. I won't say it's unfortunate, because it's okay to feel good about yourself. And if you look in the mirror and there's some certain aspects that you're not enjoying in that mirror reflection, there's a very good chance you want to go and do something about it. So whether you're a mum who's come out of childbirth for the last 2 years, whether have had a stressful or traumatic period in your life, or you just haven't been mindful enough to look after yourself, we know there's a lot of different reasons why someone may not be in the best condition. And at the end of the day, the first thing that we need to do is get people moving and building a routine where they're at least showing up. And then I think it's a matter of then reinforcing through philosophy and principles of your brand to add on aspects of longevity. Because I still think that people are going to put their physical appearance, and you could say athletic performance, as a priority. Because when you're younger, and I think it does come down to biological clock. I mean, a 20-year-old is not necessarily going to find advertising around longevity appealing over maybe physical appearance or brand culture or any of these other things. So I think it has to be a side-by-side approach. And that really comes down to the owners of the gym or the facility to be able to implement aspects that are going to support an outcome. It's like, I'll give you an example. It's like there was a phase there where all the coaches wanted our clients to be stronger. So we wanted you to drop that image or the expectation of focusing on weight loss and focus on strength development. That was a bit of a challenge, but that was also enforced by coaches. But we've also got to come back to what the client wants. If the client wants weight loss, then we should focus on that. I mean, because that's what they really want. It can only be through education that we would hope that they would embrace other ideologies and philosophies of training, or benefits, if you like, strength, longevity, etc.
And before we got on air here, you used the example of your friend who's a 71-year-old who's the front of mind for your friend at 71 is longevity. So can you talk a bit about that? You touched on the stages, and I agree that a 20-year-old, I recall way back then, I was really athletic in my pursuits. I didn't really think about longevity really until now in my 40s, right? So late 30s, 40s. So I think that's a really key point is firstly, how do we as a coach speak to that level of a 20-year-old at the same time seeding in this concept that it's the long game, like it's the long game of health that matters. So there's two parts of this. Firstly, bringing in your friend that I think is quite inspiring, and how can that portrayal inspire others in their second half of life, right? Because I think we need to really divide this concept of longevity into really two parts: the younger person who feels invincible versus the person getting older, if you like, who it becomes more front of mind that longevity is the ultimate outcome.
Well, again, it comes back to the individual. It sort of seems to be, human nature again, is that we seem to act on things when it's too late. So, obviously my friend Dom, he's 70, 72, I think, this year. He's at an age, he's 30 years plus on what I am. So he's at an age where longevity is obviously very, very important. And obviously I'm feeding off that. And in the last 5, 6, maybe 10 years, I've actually started focusing on longevity and self-care. Because when I think about self-care, I know it's more than just training. I know it's more than nutrition. But I also think that you gain a greater grasp of it when you start diving into things. So it's like nutrition. You break it down into vitamins and minerals, and then you break it down into what am I missing. So then you start focusing on deficiencies. And then obviously as you get older, you start focusing on things like sleep and recovery, because we notice it more. So it's definitely one of those age-specific indicators. Like once you hit 40, so I think people start to wake up a little bit and say, maybe I should do a little bit more, but even then it's a choice. So our challenge between you and I in the industry has to find ways of trying to get people to embrace that when they're 30 or when they're in their 20s. And again, I think that comes down to systems. It has to be integrated systems in what we're delivering at our facilities. So I think I touched base on what you were talking about. But,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Look, to kind of put it into this concept here, I'm thinking like, how do we give someone paint that picture initially? So that 20-year-old, that 30-year-old, like how are they feeling now, right? And ultimately, where do they want to be? How do they see themselves in their older self, right? And you could put a numeral to that, the older 70-year-old, the older 80. And I think there's something to be said about that. If we can impact right at the beginning, shapeshift, if you like, their way of thinking, from a 20-year-old onwards, I wonder, do you have experiences of that, of actually painting a more longer-term, older self versus where they're at now? Because then I think it gets them thinking that it's a longer game. It's not just like 2 months, 3 months. Now it's thinking in a bigger way. I mean, there must be something to be said about that, Seb.
I think it does come down to philosophy. So it has to be at the beginning. When I can only use my gym facilities as an example, because that's where I have one-on-one interactions with humans. And again, when people sign up, I mean, it's fair to say that there are a number of people in their younger bracket that are willing to embrace longevity, no doubt. But it comes down to a conscious maturity. So the only way that we can sort of get these people to embrace it at an earlier age has to be from the start. So it's an education process from the start. Now we do some induction sessions for all our members when you first sign up in the first couple of months, first couple of weeks, and we do go through a whole series of movements which do cover mobility and functional mobility, and we connect back to when they actually start getting older and highlight the importance. And we do a lot of emailing in the first couple of months talking about longevity and what they can do to implement these things into their routines. But that's from a forced aspect. I mean, we force that upon them because we've put those emails together, all these training sessions together, and we hope that people actually jump in and embrace the information. And that's all we can do at the beginning. I haven't quite worked out the next evolution to that. I mean, I am building some applications, so we've got some online applications and a phone application which will start tracking some of this data on a day-to-day basis and trying to get people to interact with it on a more consistent basis. But that's in development, and I think it just takes a bit of time. And I think that's what we're going to see over the next 10 years is a big push towards longevity. I think it is going to be a stronger philosophy aspect for many facilities, brands in particular.
Yeah, because if you think about the idea of the training age versus biological age, that can be flipped chronologically, right? So you'll have a person who's in their 60s and 70s, and they may be actually biologically kind of younger as a result of all of that training that they've put in, all of their thinking, of course. So they've got their mental side of fitness, their physical side of fitness, how they think, etc. And the net effect of that is looking at reversing the chronological age clock, right? And I think you touched on something before. You said forced, right, in terms of some of the onboarding. I disagree. I think it's educational. And I think what's interesting is rather than forcing it, we educate.
Well, what I mean by force is the email arrives in their inbox, and then it's up to them whether or not they engage with the information and education. But it's not like there's no choose to receive button on some of this information. So, but that's how we've started this process, and we'll see where it leads.
Well, what we, interestingly enough with educational, and this is where I think some insights for trainers is a must, is, again, that could be a forced thing, is a must, is from an educational perspective, is going, well, kind of tissue damage, loss, like if we're impacting joints and tissue with high intensity training all the time, there's going to be a breakdown, right? And that biological breakdown will actually accelerate our aging. So I think by actually using science, using facts, using anatomy, etc., it's important that we say there's going to be a loss of mobility in your 40s, for example. There's going to be a loss of mobility if all we're doing from our 20s and 30s is sitting for long periods. There's going to be a dysmorphing, of our posture. And the next element of this is just to go, well, what do we need to think about in the long term around those factors of muscle density, atrophy, all of those elements? Do you really want to kind of become that in your 50s, 60s, 70s when actually you can still maintain a good level of strength, a good level of power, agility, mobility? And I think there's something to be said about this, around the elements of fitness that can still be sustained and maintained in their second half of life, call it 40s into their 50s, etc. So I think that educational piece is very important. In that early phase, the educational being also the philosophical components that really get that client. And again, as you said earlier, wisely, you're going to have someone whose priorities may be different. They come to you at Elements for Life as a 60, 70-year-old, and guess what? Like, for them, they're thinking, I need to do this now, and I need to... So it's never too late, I suppose. What do you have to say about the fact that it's never too late?
Well, it's definitely never too late. And it's never too late to work on yourself, whether that's physically or emotionally or spiritually, and I think we can all agree on that. And but it does come down to the individual and what they're willing to engage with. So it's just a matter of, like I said, exposing people to the right environments that enable it. I mean, the good thing about the gym is once you engage with the gym and we know this, and you make it part of who you are, and you're showing up, and you've got a nice consistent training regime, and you're surrounded by good people, by default you're going to reap a lot of the benefits that go along with improving your longevity. We know that. So the gym is actually one of the first parts of it, and whether you want to have gym/movement or activity, you don't have to go to the gym. You can climb mountains, but that's I think in this modern world, the first point of call is getting everyone to start, whether that's through the gym or through a local running club, or if they want to climb mountains. It doesn't matter. We just got to get them to embrace that first move. And I think, like I said, by default, all of a sudden other things start to become a priority. They start to think about their nutrition and their sleep and their recovery. We just have to get these key words at the forefront of their thinking with a little bit more priority on a daily and weekly basis. And it probably does come down to key words. And even in my blog that I've written in support of this podcast, I've covered some of those topics. And I'm big on language, getting people to embrace certain key phrases and language, and then adopting those. It's like spell casting. Once you're repeating those words in your own dialogue and in your own behaviour, there's a very good chance that you're going to find new success.
Now, a couple of key words that struck out here is an enabling environment, which I think is very powerful. Can you expand on that a little bit from your experiences of actually cultivating an enabling environment that then breeds community. And that community then, how important is that community to kind of impacting all of those members of different ages, yeah? Like you could have a 20-year-old, a 30, 40, etc. That's if the gym kind of has that avatar. So can you speak a little bit about that, the enabling environment and the importance of community to helping to tie in this longevity concept?
Well, community is a bit of a catch cry or a catchphrase. Is a lot of in the industry at the moment. You see a lot of brands throwing community around as one of their key philosophies, but I don't think they have much depth. For us, it's community is really about getting people to engage with each other on key aspects to their life at a level that they can then relate to each other. So whether that's movement, obviously when you've got a little club following at your gym, or you've got your friends at the gym, you're more likely to show up. And we know we do a lot of external activities trying to get people to engage with the community at different levels. So things like, you've got your things like Tough Mudder, we've got overseas trips, we do mountain climbing, we've done seminars on nutrition, we've done seminars on personal values and these type of things, and we've seen great results from that. But again, it comes down to the individual, and if you've got X amount, and it's a percentage of your community as well, because I think people all have different interests. So all you can do from an engaged environment is obviously the coaches have to be aligned with some of these aspects. And I think we're fortunate that many coaches in this space do believe in a lot of these aspects, but it has to be an education process with the coaches first, and then I think everything else you do in the gym, whether it's your website, your blogs, your social media posting, your stories, your reels, your podcasts, they all have to have a flow-over effect in regards to sharing the philosophy and these key aspects. I mean, if you're just talking about HIIT training and technique all the time, you're missing out, or you're probably not doing justice to your community. So but again, it comes down to the philosophy of the gym.
Well, that's what we touched on earlier, didn't we? So it's that stand really is your brand, and what I mean by stand is what are your character strengths, your mission, and all of those things, as you say, that help define the philosophies of how you train your clients. And just touching on that sort of portrayal of the false community that you're seeing, can you give some clear examples there? I mean, you're indicating that simply portraying through branding, technique, and all of these fancy movements, etc., is not doing justice for the whole the integrative approach to fitness or health.
Well, I wouldn't say teaching good technique has a negative result on your community. But I think just saying that rocking up to the gym and flogging yourself on a ski machine is what community is all about. Sure, there's other people who might want to flog themselves at the gym, but that's part of this whole longevity. You can't train like an athlete every day. I mean, if you're not training for the CrossFit Games age 45, then why are you putting your body through so much strain on a daily basis? But again, this is obviously comes down to personality and personal training principles, what people like to engage with. I don't really like talking about other brands. I've seen a lot of the community word thrown out there, but it seems to be more revolved around hype. So it's just imagery of training really hard, and that's what they think community is. Community really needs to be a little bit more depth, and that's what we're talking about, these types of subjects, whether it's longevity, whether it's recovery, whether it's nutrition. It has to be with some more depth.
And part of that depth as well, you connect people outside of the gym environment through other, let's call it extracurricular activities. Now, on that note, what are some of the strategies that you incorporate to get people moving outside of the gym? So one of those is the social aspect of maybe going hiking or whatever that could be. But can you talk a bit about that as getting people kind of in the vogue of movement outside of Elements for Life?
You just got to organise it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Aaron and I, we do a lot of background work for our gyms. So we've got a very, very clear schedule throughout the year. We've also tried a lot of things over the last decade. So we've done everything. We've tried a lot of things, and a lot of things have worked. A lot of things we can come back to as well. Sometimes you might do something for a few years and it gets a bit stale. Might mix it up, but again, you've got to put it into the calendar and then educate, if you like, and market these opportunities to your clientele and get them engaged and get them participating. And I think you'll find that it doesn't really matter how many people actually show up, even if it's only 5 or 10. That has an overflow effect when people see what you're doing on social media, especially if you take some footage and write some supporting blogs and some social media posts. It's not just good for your own branding in regards to marketing, but I think we've seen over the years a lot of people come up to us and go, oh, we really appreciate you doing it. I couldn't make it this time, but I really want to go. So and even if they don't end up going, what they're doing is at least we're planting seeds. And I think that's one of those types of scenarios here, is you're planting seeds for people to do things differently. And even if people are sort of living the life through others, they feel like they are part of something bigger. So I think that's like, again, it comes down to the hard work of just organising events, even if it's not for profit. So you might not be making any money out of it, but what you're doing is you're providing access to the opportunity.
Yeah, interestingly enough, when talking more than 10 years, 12 years ago, when I started Primal Energy Fitness with my friend Ray, one of our very first things was to get these social events happening every month. However, what we decided was these social events would be recreational fitness, if you like, or recreational health events, right? So we'd go from anything from white water rafting to rock climbing, and it would be a way. What was interesting was, to your point, is sometimes we'd have 5, sometimes we'd have 20. It didn't really matter. At that time, we didn't jump on social media as much, but what it did bring is it brought this community element, right? This deep community element of people connecting outside of the gym, getting to know each other, but also even expanding their skills that they're learning in the gym and applying it to other settings like rock climbing or walking trails, navigating through tricky terrain, paddling. And although that wasn't the aim wasn't to be competitive, but it was to actually go into these other environments, these green environments, and actually experience the benefits of those natural environments as well as the physicality things. So I think it's an interesting point you made there, and we didn't force it. It was, and nor did we charge extra for it. But it brought so much joy to me as a coach as much as it did to them. And I think you're right. I think it's about going and planning, going once a month, like make it part of the fitness journey, this which ties into the longevity aspect and motivational elements as well, I might add.
Well, it's the true essence of functional training. I mean, that's why, our gym is a functional gym. That's part of our messaging. And I get a lot of clients still today ask me what functional means. And, you have to break it down and give them the simplicity of, human movement and how the body actually moves and how that you can apply that in the real world. And that's where this type of participation comes in. It's like Tough Mudder. Tough Mudder is a great example. Tough Mudder, when it's done properly, is not about how fast the team goes, or you're not winning. You're winning as a team, and it's one of the most enjoyable experiences is being able to have 10 of your gym mates there and you're helping them up over the obstacles, and you only really appreciate it once you've done it, how much enjoyment you get out of it, and how everything sort of ties in. And, that's why we do Tough Mudder every year. It just gives people the opportunity to do these things. I know we do a lot of bushwalking as well, and we get people who even aren't necessarily members of our gym anymore because they've moved or they're at the other side of town. They will come along to these bushwalks and things, and we allow them because we want them there. They're part of our community, and that's the true essence of our philosophy. And I want to see that expand through other facilities as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's key. Like you're opening up your third one, so the idea is that this becomes consistent and it becomes a way of Elements for Life's way of doing things. And I think that's what's key as well, is perhaps even the coach or the gym owner really asking themselves what is their longevity plan, right? Like, and I think if they're not asking themselves that question, what are their actual beliefs in the notion of longevity, then I think you're right, it's not going to rub off on anyone else. So it really starts with us, the coach, the trainer, the gym owner, to just establish the grounds or the environment and then speak to that particular person in their decade of life, right? Whether they're a 20-year-old, plant the seed, 30, 40, etc., is given that vision of how do they want to look and feel in their older self. And I think it comes down to ultimately the coach's own journey.
Well, if the coach and the owner are actually living that life, I know that it's a major part of my life at the moment, so I'm always looking at doing things differently at home in regards to my nutrition. Things like detoxification, I'm right into these protocols. So if I'm living it and I'm writing about it and I'm having conversations about it with my members and other people, it definitely rubs off. Because it's also an energy. It's not just words on a piece of paper or like a forced ideology. It's more of an understanding, but it is an atmosphere. And I do believe in energy. It's a vibration. It's a frequency. It's something that you put through your facility, and it rubs off on everyone. But it does come back to the leaders, because if the leaders are doing it and leading by example, then it naturally will flow on to those around you who look up to you, because we are authorities and we're professionals and we need to be doing the things that we would like other people to embrace, whether they want to do it or not, or they may have a different perspective on some of those protocols. It's really up to them to navigate and explore that to a place where they're comfortable, and whether they embrace it or not, I think it's more about mass. From my point of view, I'd like to see more people embrace these protocols, and again, it's up to them what they do with it.
Yeah, totally dig that, and thank you for sharing. And on that note, I wanted to ask you, particularly, if you could change one thing about the health, fitness, let's say our industry today, what would it be?
It's a good question.
It's what I use all the time.
One thing. Well, something that I've seen is, now I know there's a place for different types of fitness models. So I'll give an example. You've got your gym only, you've got CrossFit, and I can use some of these words because people sort of understand. And we can sort of say that they're at different intensities. So there needs to be, across the board, a better onboarding process for people who have not been in the gym space in the recent period, whether at all, or just in the last couple of months or last couple of years, or they're embarrassed or scared. It's amazing how many people we've come across who just haven't had exposure to that type of arena, if you like. And I think there needs to be a better onboarding practice. So people know they're educated in human movement, they're educated in delayed onset muscle soreness, so they sort of have a greater understanding of what they're in for at the beginning. And it's got to be done in a way where it's exciting, because we want them to stay on. You know, you don't want to. It's when you talk about DOMs, some people sort of go, "Oh, I'm about to get run over by a bus here." It's like, well, the answer is yes, but we need you to just push through 2 or 3 sessions and see how you're feeling. But I think there's a lot of places that don't have that screening at the beginning. They're just jumping into classes, jumping into formats that aren't necessarily for them at their level. But it does come down to the individual facility and the coaches. But I feel like there's a gap between onboarding someone who walks through the door and then being able to progress with a little bit more control, I think. So,
and treating it maybe.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a little bit too open to human error based on facility and individual coach, how they treat each individual. And an individual can have a good or bad experience based on that. And if they have a bad experience, they might not walk into a gym ever again, or they just don't want to embrace that type of living, which is a shame, because you want people at a higher percentage being able to come through. And I think that's something that we've really been able to do over the last decade, is bring people from, I won't say zero, but analogies from zero to hero. And you've got to treat everyone as if they're a zero or a white belt. I talk about white belt in karate, because everything's the gym to me is a discipline, and you have to learn and earn your stripes. So if you have never been in the gym, all you are is a white belt. You just got to learn the patterns, repeat those patterns, and you can work towards becoming a black belt. And obviously in the gym space, it's a black belt in health and fitness.
Yeah, even then that never stops, right? You've got stripes.
Well, you got stripes and,
Yeah, no, I agree. One of my principles is treat it like a journey. So, really enjoy this conversation, Sab. And for those listeners, those who tuned in, you can follow Sab at Elements for Life, and there's the links and your social media handles. And perhaps you could even throw the blog in as well. I think that would be very intriguing, inspired by this podcast.
Well, I put it up. What is it? I've got a holistic longevity guide. So the blog's on my homepage at elementsforlife.com.au. And if Tarek's kind enough to give me the link to the podcast, I'll throw that in the middle.
Absolutely.
So people can come back and reference it.
They can follow you and all the good stuff that you've been doing over the last decade. Over there in Canberra, doing some wonderful stuff, mate, and changing lives in the process too. So keep up the good work, my friend.
I shall. So we've got lots planned, and obviously we've got a very strong synergy between FTI and Elements for Life in regards to how we engage with our coaches, and obviously the training, master functional training, those types of things. So it's all added to our experience and our members' experience.
That's wonderful to hear, and glad that you're making an impact on every single member and really creating a special, authentic community, shall we say. And hopefully those who listened in are inspired about their own journey, whether you're a coach or not. And really, if you're a business owner, thinking about the essence of community and really tying in some of these golden nuggets that we discussed, having an enabling environment, but also extracurricular activities that sort of tie into this whole notion of culture and how we can have the members interacting at really deeper levels, so that it becomes more about a journey, a long-term journey, not just something that is a quick fix. And I think that can take time, like Seb, you've alluded to. So be patient, be kind, and continue to love what you do, and stay tuned for more great content. All right, excellent.